Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 6th episode of Crimes and Closings. I'm Jenny Olson-Payton.
And I'm Dia Kappelman.
And we're getting consistent, man. I mean, 6 episodes. Right. That's like a whole.
Well, we're gonna have to talk about a season soon. Like, what is our season gonna look like? We've got to have season finales. We've got to have
season premiere. For the next one.
Yes.
We have a red carpet.
We need a red carpet.
We need a step and repeat.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so it's called, you know the thing, like when you're seeing everybody on the red carpet, and they're like, there's that big background, and they're like,
with like the sponsors.
Yeah, sponsors and stuff.
Okay,
that's called a step and repeat.
Why is it called a step and repeat?
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is they're like stepping, repeating, taking pictures.
Okay.
So
why
if you know
banner,
because that's just too easy. So if you know why it's called a step and repeat,
yes,
crimes and closings at gmail.com. We need to know these things.
Yeah.
Okay. So
all right, we'll plan that.
It might just be you and I and our moms.
But we got 4 of us.
It's a party.
It is.
It's a party. Yeah. So yeah, for sure.
All right.
Okay.
Well, this episode we were talking about the Tylenol murders before, and about how so many of us are just used to having safety caps, safety lids, all of that on narcotics.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. But it wasn't always the case. So it got me thinking about what else do we have that we're used to, but hasn't always been the case. And I was thinking about 911. I thought, I'll do this nice little episode on how 911 came about. And then it turned into rabbit holes. It turned into there's a tree and there's branches and then there's limbs off the branches. So I'm going to try and go through this really, really quickly because there's just so much to cover. But each of these little sidebars on here has so much depth, has so much information. So if there's something you're interested in, you need to learn about it, because each story on its own is just,
it's crazy. Well, I think that's the great thing about true crime is that there's always so many sidebars and rabbit holes you can go down. In fact, I have a lot of true crime friends, and one of my favorite gifts is Alice kind of falling down the rabbit hole.
You sent that one to me.
Yeah, I think it's you and Aaron Potter. It's like that's like my 2 gifts are like that one and like, you know, Shaq peeking around a tree or something.
Yes.
You've seen it a lot. You're like, oh, Jenny's down the rabbit hole yet again. And then next thing you know, it's like 3 a.m. and you're like all covered up and you have like sleep in your eye.
With your big blanket? The blanket, what was it called? The Big Blanket Company?
The Big Blanket Company.
Which I'm so jealous that you have one.
Seriously, Big Blanket Company. You can sponsor us. I mean, like, if you don't know what the Big Blanket Company is, I'm going to hold my hand up. Yeah, we'll hold my hand out and later we're going to put a picture of it. But
you can be our step and repeat for our season premiere.
It's big enough. It's like 10 foot by 10 foot.
Oh, I was thinking they could sponsor us, but we could just have the blanket behind it.
Yes. So literally, I mean, I'm going to do a quick sidebar if that's okay.
Oh, this is full of sidebars.
And this is not, I mean, like, we'd love you to sponsor us, but like, we're not getting paid for this. But honest to God, you saved my marriage. I can't even say, it was like, I was like, had the marriage therapist on speed dial. I was so mad. And my husband surprised me with a big blanket from the Big Blanket Company yesterday.
Everything's good now.
Yeah, everything is good. Not only do I not have to share that blanket with anybody, which could be a reason for divorce in itself. It was probably the best early Mother's Day gift I ever got. So yes, if you do step and repeats, if you are interested in sponsoring us,
closings@gmail.com.
Yeah, we love you. We love you. So, and you know, maybe I'll bring it next time and we can do like the whole thing in the blanket.
We can. Yeah. Can you please? All right. Next time's in the blanket.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
All right. So sidebar.
All right. Well, we'll start on our first sidebar.
Okay.
Now for the crimes part of this.
Okay.
I'm going to start this with Catherine Sue Genovese, or as most people are going to know her, Kitty Genovese. If you've heard of the story, you've probably heard her as Kitty Genovese.
It's an awesome name.
It is. Very is. She was born on July 7th, 1935 in Brooklyn. She had a very strict Catholic upbringing, but it did not stick.
The best of us, it doesn't happen to.
Yes, you know a lot about that.
Recovering Catholic.
Yes. Same for Kitty.
Okay.
Because by the late 1950s, she was a lesbian bartender in Queens.
Okay.
It did not stick.
No.
In 1961, she was arrested as a bookie.
Okay. Well, do keep in mind, like 98% of the mob is Catholic. So, you know.
I guess she still put him in Catholic. That's true.
But, you know.
And she did have plans of opening her own Italian restaurant.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, we're still kind of well within the range. Unfortunately, on March 13th, 1964, she was getting home from her shift as a bartender. She arrived to the parking lot of her apartment building, and there was a front and a back entrance, and the back entrance was closer to where she parked, but she always went in the lighted front entrance because obviously the lighted area was going to be safer.
Okay.
This time it wasn't. She noticed somebody walking behind her. She tried to run away. The assailant overtook her, ended up stabbing her twice. When she cried out for help, someone heard her, yelled out the window. A man yelled, "Hey, leave her alone." The assailant ran off. And Kitty tried to crawl into the apartment building. Depending on the source, she either made it in or didn't make it in, but either way, she was away from where people could see at that point. She made it that far. Her attacker knew that if the police didn't show up 10 minutes or so, then everybody was just going to go back to what they were doing.
Right.
So he moved the car so it looked like he left when he ran back to his car, and then waited for police. When police didn't show up, he spent time trying to find her, basically hunted her down, found her again, and then stabbed her, robbed her, raped her, and left.
And that's quite a commentary on society when he sat there and waited, knowing the police were probably not going to show up.
Yeah.
And what time in the morning was this?
This was this all happened within an hour of about 3:15 a.m.
Okay, so at least it wasn't like, I mean, most people were probably dead asleep, but still.
Yes.
And when was it? It was July?
It was in July.
So most people had their windows open.
Windows were open.
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll get into that part of it. That's going to be another sidebar later.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yes. One of her neighbors did find her. Actually found her pretty quickly for being 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Called the police. The police did show up. Unfortunately, Kitty died en route to the hospital about 4:15 a.m. So now we're going to go to our second sidebar about this story, I guess. What happened to Kitty ended up blowing up in the newspaper and becoming very sensationalized.
No. Yeah. I can't believe it. The newspaper.
A newspaper?
Sensationalizing something?
That doesn't seem right. They might have exaggerated a little bit. They were releasing everything as over 3 dozen people had heard her scream for help or witnessed the crime itself. Not one person called police. And when questioned about it, everybody's response was, "I didn't want to get involved." However, then the sidebar to the sidebar is that has been proven wrong.
Oh, good.
They
Makes you
had,
feel better.
well, you're not going to feel too much better. Sorry. Instead of over 3 dozen, they're thinking it was probably closer to about 12.
Okay.
That actually did either hear or witness what happened. They were correct that when responding to it, people said, "I didn't want to get involved." They did also say that one man called for police, but the police never showed up.
That's unfortunate.
If they had, then she probably would have lived because the first attack wasn't life-threatening.
Right.
So now back to, I think we're on the first or second sidebar.
Sidebar to be.
Yes. We need notes. Because it got so sensationalized, however, there was public outcry over how it was handled. And even, this is interesting, another little branch off of this, Captain Sully Sullenberg, the pilot.
I want my name to be that.
Sully Sullenberg?
Sully Sullenberg. From now on, I'm the agent known as Sully Sullenberg.
I mean, I can call you that.
You'll be like, "Hey, Sully," and I'll be like, "Sully."
You
Jenny.
say that when I say Jenny. So Sully, the Miracle on the Hudson, he kept a cool head. Both engines failed. He kept a cool head, landed the airplane on the Hudson River, saved everyone's life because he had such a cool head about it. Has stated that he was 13 when this happened. And because of it, it made such an impression in his life that he vowed he would always help people when he could. And look what he has turned into.
So I think Kitty would be proud of that. I would hope. She seems like the type of chick that would be like.
Oh, she was, it was so hard not to go into more detail about it. She drove a red Fiat convertible. She had sass. She had.
I'm seeing like a Blanche Devereaux, Dorothy Zbornak mix.
Exactly. She had the sass of Dorothy Zbornak with the
sex appeal of Blanche.
Yeah, attitude and sex appeal of Blanche, and just did not care, and was a small petite thing that would go up against.
I love that.
The men, and again, this is in the 50s, early 60s, where it was very sexist, and she did not care.
Good. She's my kind of chick. I like that.
Yeah, she was fun. It was fun reading about her. But anyway, so then we're back to Captain Sully Sullenberg, also a fascinating read on his life. He's lived quite a life. So then back to the back.
Sidebar 1C.
Yes. At this point, because of the public outcry, there had been talk for several years actually about creating one number that people could call in case there was an emergency. And it had started because of fires. You could call one number and it'd be the fire department, because right now at this point in time, if you needed the fire, you would need to call the 10-digit fire department number. If you needed the police, you would call the 10-digit police department number.
Back when we remembered numbers.
Yeah, I don't know anybody's number now.
You know, I remember very distinctly. Remember those? It was about the time Rotary was done, and we got those phones with the first top numbers were like fire, police, and
emergency,
or like ambulance or something like.
Okay.
Yeah, it was something weird, and we'd have to program them in.
Yes.
And how many times that I remember programming it, accidentally calling 911, and I was convinced. I was like 5. I was convinced they were going to come haul us away, and my parents had to get on and explain we were just programming the phone. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
I used to do that quite a bit because we live by a 913 area code.
Oh yeah.
So when you're trying to
call Kansas,
then
and it was about the time, because originally we didn't have to dial 816 or 913.
Yeah.
We could just dial the number, and then I was probably in like 4th or 5th grade.
Yeah.
And they made it so that we had to dial 913. My grandparents lived in 816. I lived in 913, and so yeah, I could see how that could be an issue.
Well, and Pizza Hut's phone number was 913. It started
913 648 8888. 648 648 for Pizza Hut delivery.
Yeah, so I'd have to be like, no, I wasn't trying to call the police. I needed pizza. Which sometimes that's also
it could be emergency.
For real though.
I know. Pizza next week. Pizza Hut, if you'd like to sponsor.
Minsky's.
Okay, Minsky's.
You know how I feel about it. You've made memes with me in Minsky's. Next to the Minsky sign.
Yes, I have.
I have those.
That's awesome.
All right, so now I don't know. Now we've rabbit holed off our rabbit hole.
We were talking about the one number.
Right. So one number. So they've been talking about this for a while to try and get this together.
So had any other country developed?
The UK had 999.
Okay.
So then this happened with Kitty, and the push became a little bit harder. They've been throwing it around for years. And we should do this, and nobody ever did it. I think they probably should have just got women involved, because women would have taken. I mean, look what happened with Kitty, and now boom.
Yeah, no kidding.
It took about 3 years, but it did really push it along, and people said we need to do something about this. So UK had 999. We decided on our end, speaking of rotary phones, that 999 would take too long on a rotary phone.
If you don't know what a rotary phone is, look it up.
Google images.
It's you'd put your hand in the button and go. And then go. So you just see that 9. Hold on. Put the knife down. Just hold on 1 more second.
I actually love rotary phones.
Too.
I was so upset when we moved to the push dial phone. Yes. I would have a rotary phone now if I needed to dial.
Yeah, it would be really fun.
Yes.
And then you mess up though, and you'd be like on the last number, and you're like, dang it.
Yes.
Start again. So 10 minutes later, you finally get a hold. Now, why did I call you?
Yes. So on this side of the pond, we decided 911 to make it a little bit shorter and easier. So that's another interesting tidbit.
Wonder why they didn't go with 111.
I don't know, and I'm not sure why they did that. If because it was all about another rabbit hole on how they decided 911. There were no other area codes. They thought it was easiest. They thought it was better and easy to remember. But I also thought, well, 111 is easy to remember.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's an area code, so I'm not sure. So anyway, back. It's also interesting to know that it took until, I believe, 67. The first 911 phone call was actually made in Haleyville, Alabama, from Representative Rankin Fight.
Oh, that's a good last name.
It is.
So was it a like publicized thing, or was
Yes.
it okay?
It was a complete publicity stunt of he called another representative at the other end to say we made the first call.
Okay.
And apparently Haleyville is still very proud of that fact. So yay, Haleyville.
It's like the people that are really proud of like their person being on American Idol. It's like home of the first 911 phone call.
Belton, Missouri.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't American. What was he on? What was Tate Stevens?
I don't remember.
Anyway.
Yes.
Okay. So that was from Haleyville. Interestingly enough, in 1987, still only about 54% of the country had implemented 911.
Wow.
Yes.
I can't even imagine.
Fairly recent.
I mean, I can't imagine, life before Tylenol had, some of that stuff was protected, and then having 911. I mean, that's like
it wasn't normal.
The worst sign in apocalyptic movies is when you dial 911 and it's busy.
I mean, it's not the worst sign, but
know.
it's up there.
That would be like immediately put me into a panic attack. I'm like, everything's fine, but 911 is busy. Look out the window.
Yes. That's bad. So now on to the maybe second or third, I don't know which sidebar we're on.
Sidebar 4.12.
Okay, thank you for keeping
doing what I can.
Kitty's case actually became well studied in psychology and has coined the term bystander effect.
Okay.
And this is a studied effect that happens and says that the more bystanders there are, the less likely anybody is to do anything about it. So even with about a dozen witnesses, she was in a very large, I mean, it's a New York apartment building.
Right.
So everybody assumed there were more bystanders.
Yeah.
Somebody would do something else.
Yeah. Well, and we say, first of all, I think it needs to be named something much more fun than bystander, like Kitty's Cluster or something like that. I mean, Kitty's Cluster. It needs to be named something.
It's psychology.
It's true. But
psychology doesn't have fun names.
I love it, but yeah, no, it's the bystander effect. Yeah, and we do still see that. I mean, unfortunately, not to go down a political rabbit hole in any way, shape, or form, but the amount of people that were around when George Floyd happened. I mean, there was a lot of bystanders and a lot of just whipping out their phones.
Yes.
So, so that's yeah, you see it all day, every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
But because one person doesn't act, then nobody acts.
Right.
And so that was something that has also come around because of her death.
Oh, good. Well,
so interesting.
Like I said, I think Kitty is probably, she seems like the type of chick that would be kicking it for the fact that so many great changes were done.
I think so, because now it's something that we know, we understand, and we can make moves to not have that happen again, to understand it and understand that in a crowd. And that's why I know there's training. If there's an incident that does happen, you point to someone. So I would say, you in the red shirt, you call the police.
Yeah.
And then somebody is likely to do something about it. But until then, you can't just let people be on their own.
Right. Well, and one of the things that they teach in self-defense class is to never yell rape or help or anything like that. It's always yell fire, because something that is a little less personal is going to have more of a response from people than something that is personal that somebody doesn't want to get involved in.
Wow.
Yeah. And when you think about it, I mean, especially, I mean, we can go down a whole nother rabbit hole, but when you think about some of the things that go on with like my involvement with CASA, we are in place and mandated reporters, but there's so many people that witness things and just think, oh, well, somebody else is going to report that. Somebody else is going to do that. And
I don't want to get involved.
I don't want to get involved.
Back to this.
But because, and then there's also back to, the always wanting to be polite. Well, maybe that person is just having a really bad day.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't understand the entire situation. And, it's a safe place to be. I understand it because Lord knows we've all had those days. But sometimes that is why crimes can happen more and more.
Yes, absolutely. So that's the story about how 911 came about.
Okay.
But I do want to end with Kitty's case and
Yeah.
the resolution to that, because this on its own has several rabbit holes on this. Because we still don't know who killed her at this point.
Right.
And police had no leads, and because she was a lesbian bookie
Yeah.
in the 50s and the 60s, this did leave it pretty open to, it could have been a hate crime, it could have been
100%.
sexist, why
Whatever.
did it happen? Yeah, could have been the mob. Well, 6 days after her stabbing, Winston Mosley was arrested for robbery, and police thought that he looked an awful lot like the guy that witnesses described, and his car looked an awful lot like the one. And so they questioned him, saying, "Do you know anything about this?" And Winston just said, "Yeah, I killed her." And throughout his entire life, he was described as just being pretty matter of fact about laying out the details of these gruesome murders and having no emotion about them whatsoever.
So there was murders beyond just Kitty.
Yes.
Mm.
The one for Kitty, he did admit that he left his 3 kids at home sleeping while his wife worked the night shift as a nurse. And he simply wanted to go kill a woman.
Oh, for the love.
And so Kitty ended up being murdered for no other reason than she just happened to be out when Winston
Which is
Mosley was out.
amazing that, I mean, even in Brooklyn in the 50s or 60s, like 60s, I would not think it would not be an easy target, even at 4 o'clock in the morning.
He said, he admitted it took him about an hour and a half to find her.
Wow.
Yes. So even an hour and a half is
Still very short amount of time for.
But he also specifically went for women.
Yeah.
And so I'm imagining if there was some activity, he might not. Women were probably few and far between, but he would choose women because they were easier to kill. Again, his own words.
Yes.
He is a garbage human being, and we will talk about this a little bit more.
Okay.
Because yes, I did say murders. He also admitted to shooting and then burning to death to cover it up housewife Ann Johnson in February 1964. And it was a case that until then hadn't been solved. But unfortunately, because all they had was his confession, they had no physical evidence or anything else to link him to it, he was never tried.
No, for the love.
He then admitted to stabbing to death 15-year-old Barbara Kralik. But here's the interesting thing on this, the rabbit hole on this one, is that Alvin Mitchell was currently arrested and being tried for the murder because he confessed.
Oh my gosh.
Which he later recanted, and he claimed that police coerced him, they questioned him for over 50 hours, they physically threatened him. He said, "I would have admitted to killing the president at that point." So he recanted, they still tried him, and Mosley became a witness for the defense of Alvin because Mosley had details about the case that only the murderer would know.
Oh my gosh.
So he confessed to the police stuff that they hadn't released in public. The defense used it, but unfortunately for Alvin, it still ended up in a hung jury.
Oh my gosh.
Which I don't know how that happens.
Yeah.
But he was retried. And at this point, the second trial is when Winston Mosley said, "You know what, I actually don't want 2 murders on my record. I'm going to back out from this. And
just going to be one and done."
Yes. Yeah. He decided one was enough. So then Winston Mosley recanted his own statement. Alvin Mitchell was convicted of manslaughter and served 12 years.
Oh my gosh.
For something that more than likely he didn't even do. So, but then back to Kitty's case, Winston Mosley tried to plead insanity. He was denied that option.
Well, especially if you walk around for an hour and a half. I'm sorry.
Yes. And you admitted, all I wanted to do was kill someone. It wasn't a spur of the moment. It wasn't
psychotic break.
No. And he had done it before. And like I said, admitted, I wanted to kill a woman. Women are easier to kill. He had logic behind what he did. He received the death sentence on June 16th, 1964. But 3 years later, on June 1st, 1967, it was appealed and reduced to a life sentence because the New York Court of Appeals found that he should have been able to argue that he was medically insane at the sentencing hearing. So we'll take another deep breath. It's going to get worse. We're going to get a little bit worse before December.
Yeah, I watched the thing about PM, which I highly recommend.
Oh,
But the gross judicial misjustice,
yes,
that's the whole time I'm just like, what? Like, I kind of feel that way about this case too. It's
Yeah.
just like, okay.
I wasn't there. I don't know. I can only say from this side of it, but I feel like the death sentence was probably the right sentence.
Yeah.
Even the judge at his trial said, I don't believe in capital punishment, but if I could flip the switch right now, I would.
That says a lot.
It does. So he was serving life only 1 year after receiving the life sentence. So in 1968, 4 years into prison, he was being transported to the hospital for inflicting self-harm on himself. It varies what he did, but the point is he did something to get out of prison.
So not to murder, not to kill himself, but
Correct.
to get out of prison.
Correct.
To be transported. Okay.
To be transported.
Well, that's medically insane, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he was being transported, he overpowered a guard, beat him with a gun. While he was on the run, he took 5 hostages, ended up raping one of them. But they did find him. It took 2 days, but they did find him after a 2-day manhunt. And then he kept applying for parole. Thankfully.
What's the definition of insanity, people?
Well, there we go. He was insane.
Oh, there we go.
But we have done some stories. Remember the Teacup Murderer? He
Nice.
was granted parole and then allowed to serve tea.
Again, gross judicial misjustice.
In this case, it worked. He stayed in. He was denied it every time. At one hearing, he said, for a victim outside, it's a one-time or 1 hour or 1 minute affair. But for the person who's caught, it's forever.
Poor baby.
Oh. I don't think I've ever been so riled up as reading that. He's turned now himself into the victim.
Yeah. And think about all the victims' families. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Their loved ones, what he's done on the outside.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the murders. He did admit to those 3. There could have been more. There could have been more rapes. There's thought to have been more. But even just the burglaries. And I know they don't compare necessarily to murder, but just being violated, someone who's coming in and taking your stuff into your personal space.
Well, and once they got away with, I mean, he probably didn't start with rape or murder. Right. I mean, it escalated obviously from being able to be successful at burglary.
Yeah. And they're thinking that it was I believe it was over 60 burglaries. So
and these poor kids that are probably left at home. The wife is going out working her butt off as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are happily asleep, and he's like,
I'm bored. You know what?
Let's go raise some hell.
Yeah. That's literally what he did.
Yeah. He needs a swift kick in the shin.
Well, thankfully, he died on March 28th, 2016 at 81 years old.
2016.
So fairly recently.
So 6 years ago.
81 years old, and I did the math on it, and he lived longer than all of his victims combined.
I would feel a lot better about that if he felt guilty every day of his life, but I don't get the sense that he does.
No, he never, from everything that I read about him, he was always just very stoked about what had happened and what he had done, and he kept applying for parole until he was finally out of his chances, and he truly thought he should get out. And so that's the story of Kitty Genovese, Ann Johnson, Barbara Kralik. I'm not going to say the garbage human being, saying he's not even a human being.
No.
And how 911 came about.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, like I said, I think that's the one thing. I think if I ever, we always joke about if we were talking about it last time, if something happens to me and I die, please don't let people say that I was a ray of sunshine. Let's be completely honest. But I can safely say if something, God forbid, happened to me, I would feel vindicated a bit if something wonderful comes out of it.
Yes.
And how many lives are changed. And
yeah,
hopefully that's some something that for Kitty.
I think she was a little spitfire. And
Yeah.
I think she would appreciate knowing that how many lives have been saved from 911.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So good one.
Thank you.
So now I'm gonna have to come up with something good in 2 weeks. I'm not prepared this
with
round.
our blanket.
With our blankets.
Yes.
Maybe there's like a blanket murderer.
Oh.
We'll see.
If there is, I haven't heard of it.
I
And it would be right up our alley.
It would be. I'll have to figure something out. No, that's probably not going to be good for them. I mean, I'm just thinking, I can wrap in it like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, you can?
So, yeah. So I'm, yeah. Okay. So, no, I'll have to come up with something good. So one of the things that we've been asked is kind of give a little bit about who we are as agents, and
because we talk about real estate, but the question was, who are you?
Who exactly are you? What makes you think you can do a podcast on both murder and real estate? Murder we got down. Real estate we're still learning.
A whole different beast. Every day it's something different.
And speaking of learning, our Miss Dia got her broker's license yesterday, which is a really big deal. I'm really, really proud of her. We're very excited for her. It's definitely something that not all agents do, and it kind of sets you above, was it a bar above bar from some of the other stuff, because it's a continuing education piece. So yeah, we're super excited about that.
And we're going to be excited for you soon because you're following right along behind me.
I'm taking it tomorrow, so we'll see what happens.
Soon it'll be 2 brokers sitting here.
Yeah, so we'll be a little more. We'll at least have a little more decoration behind us. Our not diplomas, but our licenses. So, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You go ahead.
Okay. So Jenny Olson Hayden. I've been in real estate since I started in 2012 as an admin and got my license in 2013. Started at Keller Williams Platinum Partners, which I absolutely loved. Diverted it once and went to Remax for a while, had a good time there, but decided to come back to Keller Williams Platinum Partners, which has kind of always been my home. So been here since then. I am a short sale and distressed property specialist. I handle everything, but that's kind of my passion piece. I have a designation in short sales. I've gone through some education with HUD to do some distressed properties, done some foreclosures.
You have a heart for the clients, which I think is the biggest.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely, I remember very, very early on, I knew I wanted to do short sales. I'd come out of the, I'd helped my mom. I'm on a team Olson Properties with my mom, Belinda Olson. And she, after 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, short sales were just kind of, everybody was doing short sales. So I got to see and learn at the tail end of that. And I knew that piece was something that I wanted to explore. And I told my team leader at the time, and he's like, okay, you're my pro now. So literally it was a little bit of fake it till I make it. And he just kept throwing short sales at me. And I got better and better at them and realized that I did truly love them. So that's kind of who I am. I'm licensed in Oklahoma as well, not in Kansas yet. I'm getting ready to get my Kansas license. But
you're the woman.
I don't know about that.
You're
I am no kitty.
And if you don't know anything about short sales as an agent, they're very difficult to do. They are very time consuming, and you truly have to have a heart to make it go
Every
smoothly.
single one of them is different. And it there throws a lot of, it's almost like a therapy. You're almost like a therapist because you're dealing with high emotion from your client. Your
clients are in a very emotional or very vulnerable state because it's the next step before foreclosure. And you're there to step in the gap to say, I'm here as an agent, but I'm also here as a person, and I have a lot of respect for you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's like I said, definitely a passion piece for me. And I'm very, it's something every day, and I try to tell my children, my boys, I've always said, I want you to be able to get to the point where every day you wake up looking forward to go to work. And I have bad days. We all have bad days, but for the most part, I'm 99% of the time excited about what I do. And that's a huge, huge piece. So I'll let you go, and then we can talk about how we met.
Well, that's a lot to follow. That's really hard to follow.
Basically, you're saying, Jenny, you like to talk.
No, I don't know. My name is Dia Kappelman, and I'm with Casey Vintage Real Estate, and actually got my start pretty close to my start with you at Keller Williams.
Yes.
you were one of the very first people that I met at Keller Williams, and I stayed because I thought, well, if people like this are here, then this is where I want to be.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And actually, funny story. So I had worked at as the agent service coordinator at the time at the office. So I was handling a lot of the orientation. And I remember when you walked in, we were in the process of looking for a new team leader.
Mhm.
And we were convinced you were the new team leader.
I didn't even know what a team leader was at that point. I was like 6 months into licensing, and I was like, they need a team leader. I don't know what it is, but I bet I can do it.
So we were like, the desk lady and I we were talking. We're like, do you want some coffee? We were like,
that's why you were so nice to me.
Now we obviously bonded once I started doing your orientation.
That's why you were nice.
But I was like convinced. I'm like, she's a new team leader. I thought it was gonna be a guy. What the heck?
And then there's me.
And then there's Dia. So I don't know how that came about.
Walking in like I own the place and being
like, I got it. So yeah,
I've got 3 transactions under my belt. I got this.
And at the time, Bonnie Chambers, who is your broker now,
yes,
was the acting TL. She is a phenomenal human being. We absolutely love her.
I love having her as well.
Yeah, she's a rock star. But she came out and interviewed you first, and then was like, Jenny, go sit in a room with Dia, and we kind of talked and bonded, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and we haven't left each other's side much, really.
No, we just stuck together. So we were admins together for a while, and it just it's been fun.
Yeah,
so,
and I followed you to Remax, and then ended up with Bronny. So
yep. So what do you do all in real estate?
I buy and sell. I don't specialize in the short sales. I give that to you.
Thank you.
But I am licensed in Kansas and Missouri, and I did just get my Missouri broker's license.
Yay.
And so I guess next will be Kansas broker license.
Yeah, I heard that one's a doozy.
I know.
Yeah.
I might need a little bit. I might need to recover from
you take a little nap.
Yeah, I might need a nap before I go for my
there was lots of that class. The class just went on and on. And I remember I sent you at least a couple of videos where I'm like, still going. This is how much I have left. So
yeah,
it is an intense class, but
we made it through.
Yeah, we made it through. You made it through the test time. The jury's still out for me, but
you'll do it.
We'll get there. We'll get there. So yeah, that's very exciting. So yeah. And one of the other things that we've been getting, we love to hear about who you guys are, who our listeners are. Yeah. We've been getting emails about cases you want us to cover. We did get an email the other day about Kyler Yurst, which I can't do just yet. There's going to be a lot of cussing.
We might need a longer episode.
There might need to be alcohol involved.
A lot of bad
pizza
words.
And alcohol and blankets.
That's the one we need the blankets for, because oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You talk about a garbage human being.
Yeah, it's a little too close, but I'd love to hear some of the other stuff, especially some of the older stuff that maybe is not as hard. That Kyler is just very close to home.
Yeah.
But we want to know who you are, what makes you tick, what you do. We want to know about it. We're on Instagram now. We're on Facebook. We're in the process of coming up with some TikToks. So be prepared. I'm thinking a lot of Golden Girls and fake motivational videos. Yeah, with dogs.
It has to be with dogs.
Yeah, with dogs. So yeah, be looking forward to that. So I think that's all we got today.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we'll be all well next time. She called me yesterday and said that she was kind of coming down with a cold, and I'm like, of course you are. It's because we've been sick every single time. So, but we'll be back in 2 weeks, and I'm gonna have to come up with something to top Miss Kitty. So there we go. So have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
Bye.